Hello, and welcome back to episode 5 of Torn Between. I'm one of your hosts, Michael, and this episode is actually our last episode in the season. And this one's going to be a little bit different. When Mark, Carly, and I were planning out the episodes, we really wanted to do one on mental health, but we didn't really feel comfortable doing that ourselves. So we asked our friend Bobby, who is a licensed therapist and also an area director of All the Americas here at One Collective. And he just shares a lot of really helpful insight and knowledge around how do you prepare yourself for this massive transition of moving abroad for cross-cultural work. And so I think it's a really valuable conversation, and I hope you get a lot out of it. So with that, I hope you enjoy this last episode, Torn Between. Also, I have to apologize. I definitely forgot to record part of Carly and I's audio. So there's a small section in the video that the audio is pretty terrible. So please forgive me for that. All right. So to kick things off, Bobby, thanks for joining. I think I mostly understand your roles, which is a lot, but you're in charge of all of the Americas, I think. And you started the team in Elgin. And kind of handed that off mostly, I think. And then you also started a counseling practice. So tell me, like, what would you say is actually your main role and what do you do?
Okay, so my current role is I am the senior area director of North, Latin, and South America, I think is the title. And yeah, that's been, so I've been the senior area director for North America for 2.5 years. And of Latin America for the last year. So that's all kind of, it's a relatively new role. I would say my role in that is learning. It's a lot of learning. And then I see the senior area director role as mostly a support position. Like you do have a role as a leader, but generally speaking, the question I ask and answer is how can I clear barriers? How can I help this team get what they need in order to do the ministry that God has for them? In each of the different areas. And so it changes based on the person I'm talking to and based on the area. Elgin, we launched the Elgin community in 2019, starting in 2019. And so the answer to your other question is out of that. We did a needs assessment first. So in the One Collective model of the 4 E's, we enter, evaluate, engage, and expand. And in the evaluate stage, we chose to do a needs assessment. In the needs assessment, we interviewed about 500 Elginites, people who live here, who work here. And we asked what were the biggest needs and what were the biggest resources in town. And one of the most common answers was access to mental health. In our city, there really has not been a good system for accessing mental health. There's a handful of nonprofit counseling centers. But if you know the Chicagoland area, you really go to St. Charles or Wheat to get therapy. Geneva, those are where the per capita therapists live and work. So in our community, there really, there hasn't been a lot of access. And especially if you get around to working with young people, teenagers really, really can't access it. So when we discovered that in the needs assessment, one of the people on my steering team was like, well, Bobby, you're a licensed therapist. Why don't you do something about this? Why don't you start your own practice? And so there was a lot of conversations internally with One Collective, with Brandon, with John and Scott about, can I do that? Is that fine? And the kind of the resounding answer was like, make that your lead initiative. That can be the flywheel to generate a lot of the other work. So in 2021, Rally Point Counseling was born, and it's grown very, very quickly. We now have 20 staff members, 16 therapists on our team. We have 3 sites, but the Elgin site is by far the biggest. So,
how would you say the connection between, I mean, you kind of did this, the connection between mental health and cross-cultural work for you, was it purely just because, like, this is a need, so, like, let me fill this need? Would you say that was the main motive?
The Rally Point exists to meet that need. Like, it came out of the needs assessment. Everything about the idea came out of that. There's a lot of other motives that you could say exist that have helped make Rally Point what it is, but it came out of the needs assessment. Me personally, the motive for joining One Collective was similar to the motive for becoming a therapist. I taught a message series on Jesus's emotions for summer camp one year as a youth pastor. And it was while studying Jesus' emotions and realizing Jesus' heart was for those who were hurting. Every time you see a soft emotion in the Gospels, Jesus is caring for somebody who lost someone, somebody who's sick, somebody who has a disability. All of his weeping, his sighs, the pain on his face always exists in the context of people who are in pain. All of his hard emotions are for those who are religious leaders in positions of authority that like it too much. And so at the time, I was wrestling through and realizing I was becoming more of that religious leader and drifting away from the heart of Jesus. And so um, there was a lot of prayer, a lot of time spent on that message series, and it was really a turning point for me, away from more traditional ministry models, weekly sermon writing and small group question writing, and into engaging in the community. When I was doing that, part of what that drove me into work with kids who were hurting, students who were hurting, and so we ended up launching a care ministry for kids that was really originally targeted at addiction, drug addiction, alcohol addiction. It was partnered with our church's Celebrate Recovery ministry. It ended up kind of moving more towards self-harm and other kinds of unhealthy coping tools. And then it started to shift into just kids who didn't fit into the youth ministry, who were hurting for a wide variety of things. But all of those kids with addiction, kids who are self-harming, kids who are suicidal, kids who feel like outsiders, I felt when I was working with them like I didn't know what I was doing, that my ministry degree was not sufficient to help them. And so that kind of pushed me back to school. And so I got the license to do therapy. I wrote our addiction program kind of while I was in grad school. And then that steadily over time has pushed me more and more into engaging in the community. And that's when I found One Collective and was like, this is God's calling. Yeah.
That's so cool. I love that. I think one thing Carly, Mark, and I have like kind of chatted about and explored and just like felt is like the connotation around mental health and sometimes like the how ministry and mental health like serving people with mental health struggles is a ministry.
So you've obviously worked with youth. You have a lot of history working with youth. Our audience in this podcast is like young adults who are finding their way and thinking about what's next. So as you've observed over the years, in just the demographics you've worked with, what would be like the most common mental health struggles that you see in like this age demographic?
Most common is really simple in the United States. It's anxiety by a long shot. I would say since COVID, it's probably doubled or tripled. We'll find out. Like studies are still coming out of what the statistics are on anxiety, and anxiety and all of its siblings, OCD, those kinds of things are far more prevalent than they used to be. I think a lot of that has to do with this generation is the most overstimulated generation in history. You see hundreds of thousands of inputs a day, and you've not been given any tools to process them. Then during COVID, we said, hey, we're going to take you away from all normal things and put you in a room where all you do is see inputs of beautiful people who are wealthy, and you're just going to get 100,000 inputs into your brain that you are not as good as everyone else, and we're not going to give you, again, any tools to process it with or any peers who look like you. Everyone else is more beautiful and richer and smarter than you. And then we just expect people to cope with it. So I do think there's a reality there. Here in the U.S., I go into the public schools, so I see a lot of kids in the general population. We work in the alternative schools. It's still anxiety is the biggest thing. There's a lot of trauma there, but I would say anxiety is bigger. When I go abroad, we're working in. I was just in Chile, where we work in foster homes, all trauma kids, all kids who've experienced tremendous trauma. We work in with people who have experienced trafficking in both Ecuador and Costa Rica. Again, trauma is the bigger issue, the more presenting issue than anxiety. So there is anxiety around the world, but I would say once I leave the country, I experience a lot more PTSD and chronic trauma issues.
I'm curious, how do you think for, say, like somebody like me moving into these like different contexts, like my culture and experience would change? Like I've been considering moving to Spain. What would you think, or would you say to like, how would me moving into like that different type of culture maybe exacerbate like different mental health struggles that I currently have
Yeah.
in my culture?
Yeah. Yeah. The biggest thing is that you unplug and try to replug. So I think when you unplug from something, all of your support systems, um, the things that you are most tempted to are the things that are present when you move to a new context, and you don't have all your safety behaviors, your safety mechanisms. So if you are prone to depression or anxiety, and you strip away all the things that have helped you in the past to cope with it, you're more likely to experience more depression or anxiety. If you have addiction issues, you're more likely to experience addiction because you're going to go to you may go to the coping tools. You're more likely to be more stressed. You're more likely to be lonelier. And in that, especially in the gap in between, if you haven't plugged in, you're more likely to go to those coping tools that have, in some sense, helped you get through other things,
Yeah.
whether they're good or bad.
Yeah. Would you say that just change and maybe like the loneliness you feel because maybe you don't fully know the language or you don't know how to fully integrate the culture?
Mhm.
Would you say those are the main like pinpoints that might like cause me as like full-time ministry worker to like struggle with my mental health?
Yeah, I think loneliness in particular is undersold when we talk about this work. Everybody who goes to a new context feels lonely for a while, and it's way more profound than you think it's going to be, or than you can. It's not really possible to prepare for it because loneliness is just a bizarre feeling. So I think everyone who goes somewhere. So we moved to Mexico when we first joined One Collective. We had a whole team there. We knew what we were kind of getting into. We did a vision trip. We stayed connected back home. We had people come and visit us. All sorts of people were involved, and we felt incredibly lonely. In my role in my family, I was the only one who spoke decent Spanish. So trying to get basic needs met, like how do we get gas to warm our water so that we can eat and have showers? I'm the only one in the family who can figure that out. So I'm running through the street chasing a truck that has a little bell thing and like stuff that I didn't know existed. And somebody somewhere probably told me how to do it, but because of the amount of information I was taking in, I didn't really understand it. Then I got the wrong tank. It didn't work anyway. I think that's just a reality. Like when we first moved, we couldn't get food. We couldn't get basic needs, even with a team around us. And then you feel like a baby, like, cause you're like, I need food. Somebody help me get food. I need water. I need toilet paper. Like, how do I get these basic things? Where do you get them? So the feeling of like naivety is a terrible feeling. So then you feel more lonely because then everybody is your parent, and so you feel like the waste of time, waste of space, the person who's exhausting everybody, and then you try to manage that, and then you feel more lonely. So it's just like even when you're with people, you feel outsidered, you feel lonely. Even when the people want to help, want to care. So it's just constant feeling.
And I'm sure that's hard coming from America, which is a very individualistic culture, and being like, oh, I have to be
complete dependency,
so
switching.
dependent.
Yeah.
Well, if you move to a new city in America, it's like, yes, it's unfamiliar territory, but you know how to live.
Yeah.
And if you move to a new culture, you don't know how to exist in that culture. And then you add on not being able to communicate.
Yeah. Here some of the things that are so convenient you take for granted is you recognize the logos. So you're like, oh, Walmart's a Walmart. Like I can get like pots and pans and food. I know where it is and I know how to navigate it. But you go to another country, you're like, it's the market. Like, how do I? And then where we were in Mexico, in the market they spoke a mixture of Spanish and the local indigenous language. So like it wasn't Spanishy. I was like, I just want a sweet potato, and I was like, it's not. No one knew what I'm talking about, right? And so.
Okay, so I'm curious how like ignoring your mental health here and not prioritizing it before moving could actually impact your effectiveness on the field.
Quite. Yeah, that's a good question. I think about mental health similar to how I think about working out, health, like food health or a skill. A lot of people presume that your mental health just kind of happens to you, or just like a natural thing. And people will come to therapy even and just presume if I come and talk to a therapist 1 hour a week, that my mental health will somehow improve. And so a lot of the time, some of the work that we do as therapists is we talk through like, how do you practice good mental health? How do you gain skills? Because it is more like practicing the piano or working out or eating habits. You are healthy based on what you do repeatedly throughout time.
Yeah.
It is something that you do every day a little bit, not something you do once a week for 1 hour. I remember as a kid, I took piano lessons, and I would try to show up to the piano teacher's house without having practiced and like pretend like I had practiced, but like, oh, this went much better at home, and tell all sorts of lies like that. And she did not buy it, strangely enough. She always knew whether I had practiced or not, because you can tell when somebody is getting better or not getting better, right?
Yeah.
It's the same thing with your mental health. When somebody comes to therapy and they haven't done the skills that you've asked them to practice over the week, you can tell. It's distinct. And it's the same thing when we do couples work. You can tell when one person is bought in and the other person is not. You can tell when both are bought in and see the progress. And you can tell when both are not bought in over time. It's the same thing when somebody deploys for the field. If they have not worked through past traumas, if they have not worked on relationships with parents, if they don't know how to do intimacy with friends, you can tell. And it comes out usually in how people bottle things up. So you'll notice with outbursts of anger, you'll notice with unhealthy coping tools, substance use, or pornography addictions, or things like that become more prevalent in the field because people have not done the work to really develop healthy coping tools back home. And worse things, like we've seen communities where the leadership was taking advantage of the locals, taking advantage of money being donated. It doesn't happen overnight. That sort of thing happens over consistently lying over time, and the habits you build early on become the things that come out later. And it may take 5 or 10 years for it to come out. It almost always comes out, and you see it somehow when people don't have healthy mental health or healthy relational health.
Yeah. Could you then maybe, like, you just like painted a really good picture of like how dangerous it is to not really like figure out your mental health and at least have like knowledge and tools around it. So what would you say, like, give me like a kind of a step-by-step thing, like what should I do as I'm preparing to go abroad?
How do you prioritize it?
How do I like figure that out?
Yeah.
And like maybe like what are some like tools I can put in my toolbox to help me with that?
I think that's a great question. I think open-heartedness is probably where it starts, like open-mindedness, that sort of like, if you're willing to improve and you really have checked on willingness, you're already a long way. Most people, if they're hearing this and they have like the defensiveness in their brain, they're probably the ones who are going to struggle the most.
Okay.
Defensiveness does not set you up to get better. Defensiveness means you've kind of hunkered down into a posture of self-protection. You don't learn and you don't grow when you're in that position. You just protect yourself.
I see.
So I would say that's first. Then I would probably say like getting the advice of friends and family, like genuinely with an open heart, taking all of their advice and listening really well. If you don't have friends and family who could give you really good advice, then that might be the indicator of like, I need to learn how to develop friends and family and relationships where people can give.
I was going to say, what do I do when my mom gives me terrible advice?
Yeah. Well, I would double check it. I would double check it with somebody else.
Yeah.
Hey, my mom said this. Is there anything in there that's accurate or that I would cross that advice, because you're absolutely right. I don't know your mom. But an unhealthy person will give unhealthy advice, right?
Yeah.
And so some people just give advice that's inaccurate in general. Like and there's a bunch of reasons why that might happen. So like when I say open-heartedness, it's taking from multiple people and trying to develop and like what of this is true. Yeah. Because we all have blind spots. Like I love to hear good things about myself, and I do not love to hear bad things about myself. And so I know that I tend to get more defensive pretty quick when somebody's giving me negative feedback. I'm very reinforceable. So if you give me positive feedback, I will drift towards that every time. So
see.
my wife knows this. She's like, yeah, you. And then I do that thing again. And so she knows that's how to get me to do the things she wants, is just like little, it doesn't take much. I don't even need a treat. I just like a little applause is plenty. And
a Facebook post.
Yeah, it's like a little something.
That's funny.
So I do think there's there's like some knowing you, but then being able to take that advice, like being able to take the negative feedback, and like I take negative feedback and back to my two best friends, and I say, like, this person said this about me. What do you guys like? Is there any measure of truth to that?
Yeah.
Yeah,
That's helpful.
Yeah.
And hopefully your friends know how to maybe restate it in a way that like you would really hear. And they also, like, you have trust built between them. So
Exactly.
I'm sure way easier to hear hard things from somebody you trust instead of
Yes.
hard things from like a coworker or somebody that you don't have a whole lot of relationship with. So that's great advice. I love that.
Yeah. And frequently fishing for the bad stuff. Like, hey, what am I not seeing? What am I, the more often you chase it. Like, we had a team meeting here at the counseling center today and asked, what are the unspoken rules here? What are the things that you guys have learned to navigate about me or Evan as leaders? Like, and the team like looked at us like I don't know.
That's a great
you guys
question.
Are pretty good. I don't know that there's like, and so one of the therapists answered like we know we're allowed to tell you, so that it's not unspoken.
Yeah.
I was like, that's great, but part of it is the fact that I've chased the unwritten. Like I try to find those gaps in blind spots in my own leadership. And then we laughed at Evan because we talked about the word flourishing, because he does not like the word flourishing. And so we made fun of like the things that, words that are trigger words, but even that, like, we were teasing him to his face, so it wasn't unspoken.
Yeah.
But every team culture has that to some degree, where it's really good to get it out in the open. Otherwise, it turns into some bitterness and resentment and stuff.
Exactly. If you can't say these are the things that are off limits,
Yeah.
if it's not allowed to be spoken, it's a way bigger problem than to be able to say these are the things that we can't say.
Yeah.
And everybody's like, ha ha ha. Super true.
Yeah. That's really great. Like, for me to think about, like, say I do commit and I do move to Spain. Like, I really want to try and embody that with the team that's already there.
Yeah.
And hopefully that's the culture that's there. But I don't know yet. I don't know them yet. So I appreciate that. That's great.
You're going into a team culture, but then you're also bringing something to the team culture
Absolutely.
that will change the dynamic and shape it for the future.
Exactly.
Yeah, you affect it. You for sure affect it.
Actually, I was thinking about, like, how does somebody who's really done the work and walked through something really tough in their life, and they've addressed trauma and they've come out on the other side, what, like, advantage do they bring to the field that may be different from somebody who's never faced that?
Yeah. No, I that's a really good question. I think you can tell the people who've lived through harder things and come out healthy. You can actually see it both ways. People who've gone through really hard things and come out worse, and people who've gone through hard things and come out in a better and healthier way. Probably the biggest thing is you see empathy. People who've gone through something really hard tend to hear other people going through something really hard better, with more care, with more empathy, with a slow, like, they're slower to judge. When they see somebody else having a temptation or a difficult time, feeling whatever they're feeling lonely. So I can give a personal example. So I was in the military. I remember coming back from the military. I remember going. So I was in college before I went to the military. Then I did 4 years. Then I came back. And I remember the
You've done so many things.
I remember the
so
difference
many chapters
between finals week before leaving and finals week coming back. So I was 4 years older, and finals week before leaving was like the most stressful week of my life, right? And in college, it was like, just so much stress. What if I fail? Like, my parents are going to be disappointed in me, and the world will end, and I can't afford to fail. That sort of thing. When I came back, I remember finals week, and I laughed because somebody was telling me how stressed they were. And I was like, ain't nobody dying. It's like not that big a deal.
Yeah.
Like, what's
the bar has moved
like,
for
you fail, you have to pay for the class again. Like, so what?
Yeah.
Right? It had shifted so much. And then at first, I was not healthy. So I was not very empathetic with my friend. I thought he was stupid for being worried about it. And then going to my own therapy and doing my own process and realizing I like, my threshold has stretched, right? My my threshold for the volume of stress I can handle has stretched, but that doesn't mean his has. And it's okay that we can come to the same problem from different places with different thresholds, and overdoing the work of like, okay, I can have compassion on that. So an unhealthy version of me was judgmental because I had been through more. A healthier version of me was able to manage my own stress better. So I was no longer stressed going into finals week, but I'm able to be empathetic with somebody who was.
You had more capacity to then also
Exactly.
help him.
Exactly.
That's awesome. I love that. That's beautiful.
What practices are you implementing to keep yourself healthy, and also like on your team to keep? I mean, you alluded to it earlier, but asking your team what's unspoken here, but like, what else are you doing to create a healthy environment?
I'd imagine that you move abroad and your capacity tanks like so much.
Oh, yeah.
And I'd say it's easier when you have capacity to be like, hey friends, like, how can I grow? What am I like doing wrong? But when you have like no capacity anymore, like how do you still try to do that?
Yeah. So those are two different kinds of questions. One is like, what are the healthy rhythms, and what do you do when you are out of capacity? So healthy rhythm in a position of leadership, I think the biggest thing, and I say it to my teams all the time, I'm not stressed, so you shouldn't be either. Because nobody from above you is passing down an expectation that you will work so hard that you will burn out. Because if I'm not burned out, you also shouldn't be burned out, because you shouldn't be working harder than me. And so trying to just pass that on culturally and say like, in our organization, people got into it because they care. They want to do good ministry. So they're all self-motivated, and many of them are prone to burnout because they're going to work themselves into burnout. Yeah. So being able to pass on like this culture of like, nobody's expecting that. Nobody's expecting you to run yourself or your family into the ground. Personally, I think when I was younger, I would block and boundary time itself. So like when I get home at 6, I don't pick up my phone anymore. That sort of like very clear, like it was tied to a time. I work the 45 hours. I don't work outside of that. Saturdays are my, whatever, that sort of thing, Sabbathing. Very clearly tied to hours and time. As I've gotten older, I've tied it more to energy level. And so I feel like I need more introvert time. I need to go read. I need to go work on a project in my garage. I need to go be with friends who are life-giving. I need to have intimacy in my life. I need food, and I try to be much more body and mind aware, and instead of drawing my boundaries based on the hours, because the honest truth is like 40 hours one week is not the same as 40 hours a different week, right?
For
Like
sure.
there are certain people or things that I do that like one set of 40 hours exhausts me in a very different way than a different set of 40 hours. Right? Traveling, I just was in Chile. Traveling is exhausting. It hits me a different way. I didn't even do anything. I just traveled there and hung out with people. Had delicious wine and came back, and I was exhausted, right?
Yeah.
Coming back, I have to be mindful of like, I'm more irritable the first couple of days coming back. What can I handle? I'm sleepy. How do I show up to meetings or sessions with clients in a way that's very present? So over time, I think I've learned to manage the energy much more actively than the time itself, but both work. I think if I hadn't gone through the season of doing an hour by hour boundary, I don't know that I would have learned healthy stuff later. It definitely helped my marriage to have hours versus, with maturity and whatnot, I can pay more attention to my wife and know when she needs me. So I would say it's vaguer now, but I'm probably have better boundaries now. They're just vaguer to describe to somebody outside of my body.
Sure. Yeah.
Do you encourage your team to kind of practice those same habits?
Yeah, very much. So like talking through, again, keeping Sabbaths, setting hours, using your do not disturb wisely. There's a swing there that people can be prone to, where people will use the word boundaries to be really selfish. And then there's people who will never have boundaries. And so there's a swing both directions that you have to be kind of conscious of. And so it's trying to find that happy, healthy middle ground of like, I want to serve other people. I want my life to follow Jesus's. But Jesus also took time to be alone and to sleep and to pray. And so it is okay. It is human.
Yes.
And it is to live in God's image, to
reminder.
take care of ourselves. And the flip side is we shouldn't live selfish lives where, we just don't want to deal with people. So we have boundaries.
Yeah.
So say the both swings. What was your question again? Because I talked to her. It's capacity.
Yeah.
So when you don't have capacity, how do you stay healthy? Like, how would you word that question again?
Yeah, I would say, like when I'm here right now, everything's pretty known. And so I know I'm going to go to a meeting, I'm going to do a day of work, I'm going to hang out with friends, and I'll know I'll be drained after that, but I know what I need to do to regain capacity and like fill my social battery. Yeah. When I'm abroad though, like everything takes so much more energy. Like maybe I'm like trying to speak Spanish all the time now, but I'm like not great at it. So I'm like, my brain is fried by the time any interaction. Absolutely. So how do I, maybe like the question is, how do I properly communicate my level of like capacity that I have? How do I reset that expectation for myself even? And just like do that healthily and have those expectations of capacity is going to drop.
Yeah. I don't know that there's a concrete answer to that. I think there's there's a wise old saying of like, know yourself, and then the second most important thing you can do is know others. So like knowing how to check in with yourself, like taking the time to check in with yourself. Again, there's the balance of it is exhausting to exist in another language. You also won't learn the other language or get unexhausted without doing it. Right? Yeah, so it's like the balance of like how much immersion is good for me and how much is like I went over the line and now I just need to sit and be. I need to hear some English again. I need to feel like myself.
Yeah.
I would say that line is different for every person. The amount of extroversion one person can handle, the amount of introversion you can handle is different for every person. Even learning styles, like, do I want to read more in Spanish? Do I want to listen more in Spanish? Do I want to go converse with people more? Whatever. And then I would say the flip of that is if you're going over there, you're on a team. So how do you communicate that to others in a way that doesn't come across, hermit-ish, rude, irritable? Like, how do you communicate to others, like, this is how much I can handle in a way that is like winsome? Right? I want to be on your team. I want you to feel like I'm an asset. Also, I'm not an asset right now. I'm a big drain on your resources, time, and energy.
I was talking to the leader in Santiago. His name's Dusty, and he was telling me, he's like, don't expect, like, if you move here, don't expect to be able to just do 40 hours of work as soon as you get here. He's like, actually, I want you, like, what I would tell you is that for the first 3 months that you're here, all you're going to do is you're going to hang out with people in the team and like work on Spanish. If like the timeline for Spanish classes start within that, and that is it. And that's like what you got to set your expectations to. And I feel like that was such a low bar of like expectation of like, but Dusty, I have so much more capacity than that. Like I totally could work, like move over there and like keep working. I'd be fine. But like realistically, he's seen so many people move over there, and he's seen people like manage their capacity and how they go through change in culture. And I was just like really shocked by that, I guess.
So what would be a clear sign to you that somebody is ready and healthy enough to continue this process, and what would indicate that they're not healthy and that they should not actually move forward with this at this time?
I don't know that I want to put my name or stamp or seal on anybody.
That's fair.
For sure.
That's fair.
Right? I do think different people are capable of hiding their unhealth in different ways. So I don't know that I could really clearly say, like, this is a sign somebody is healthy. I think there's a lot of people who've managed to get by being unhealthy, and I give the benefit of the doubt. I'm trusting by nature, so I usually am let's trust until it breaks, and then if somebody breaks it, then we deal with it. There's lots of things that I think are indicators of unhealth. Probably the biggest indicator to me is defensiveness. When I do the hiring process here at the counseling center and on our team and on my teams, I purposefully in the hiring process try to give negative feedback. In fact, we do our last interview here at the counseling center called the Yellow Flags Conversation, and I literally take any sort of negative feedback that anybody gave from any of the other interviews. We have a case study, we have references, and I try to dredge for negative things. Even if they're made up, they could even be fake. Like I just need some crap to say in that interview, and the goal is to watch how they respond, because there's different types of responses to negative feedback, And we need to know that we can handle it, and that even if I'm inaccurate, you can handle it. So it is a little bit helpful to see somebody's responses to bad
Interesting,
feedback.
yeah.
Because if they get defensive, I know we're not going to do well. But if they are able to, with dignity, correct me, or like, receive that. Here's how I would say that, or maybe, I don't want somebody to be passive and like accept it all. I don't think that is like very self-aware. I want you to have enough inner integrity to be able to disagree with me. But I also want to be able to have that conversation in a healthy way. So to me, that is the most helpful of our interviews. Is just watching somebody's reactions to negative feedback. But if somebody gets really defensive right away, I know it's not gonna work.
Yeah, that makes sense.
There's no reason to go forward with that, because we need to have a relationship where we can give each other feedback.
Mm-hmm.
So I'd say that's my biggest deal breaker, because I feel like people who are open-handed can learn most things when it comes to health.
Yeah, that's great. Well, thank you for sharing. You have so much wisdom and knowledge. Last question. Would you say, was there anything that we didn't ask you that you think is really important for people that are looking to do this type of work cross-culturally?
Sure. I think what I would say about health in general is mental health can easily get separated from its siblings, social health, spiritual health, physical health, and I would not want them disconnected. I would say when I think about healthy people, they're healthy in all of those ways, and unhealthy people are unhealthy in any of those ways, and that it will chain react to all of the others. And so I would say to folks, like, we tend to conceptualize health in, I would say, one of four ways. You could probably expand it, but some people conceptualize it as a physical thing. Those folks go to a doctor, they try to work out, they try to eat healthy, but they conceptualize it physically, and they try to do things that are physical. Some people conceptualize health as a social thing. They change their social environment, they date somebody, they have a baby, they yell at their parents, they try to change something socially when they don't feel well. Some people think of health as exclusively spiritual. When they don't feel healthy, they confess something, talk to a faith leader, extend their Bible reading, meditation, or prayer life, but they try to do something spiritually to feel better. And some people conceptualize well-being as a mostly mental health thing, and those folks either talk to a therapist or hop on ChatGPT. But the reality is they're interconnected, and you can almost always see how one is catching the others. And so a lot of the time in therapy, we help people untangle things. Like, it might be a physical cause, low iron, that is making you feel depressed and self-loathing. But it's actually low iron that's doing it to your body. And then when you feel low, you're trying to explain it in your mind, and so you're like, I must be worthless, or nobody likes me. But the reality is, it's really hard to get out of bed when your iron level is low. And so, your hygiene is worse, your energy level is worse, your ability to articulate yourself is worse, because iron helps your red blood cells move oxygen to your brain. So you're essentially suffocating right now, and you just don't know it. Part of what we do in therapy is help folks untangle it. Go to a doctor, get a blood panel. Like, I'm not a doctor. It's not my job to do your blood panel or to interpret it, but to help you explore it. So I would encourage folks, if you're going overseas, to really think holistically about your health, because if your fundraising is low, it's going to affect your mental health and your sense of self. Yeah. If your financial world is bad, if your social life is bad, if your spiritual life is bad, they're all connected. So I think if I was to give you one final thing, I would be like, don't disconnect even this mental health conversation from all the other parts of your health.
Thanks for listening this far into this episode. If you're resonating with this and maybe leaning towards trying to do cross-cultural work, you should find a link in the description here, or go to onecollective.org/begin. And there you can find a form to get connected with Mark and Carly and actually start exploring, like, what does cross-cultural work look like for me? And if you're not quite ready, totally okay. We're going to still spend the last 10 minutes of this episode where Mark and Carly kind of just share a little bit about how they walk with people and apply what we've learned so far in the series to actually coaching somebody and figuring out the best place and the best time for them to go. So please enjoy the rest of this conversation. Mark, thanks for joining us. after Carly and I had a great conversation with Bobby. It was super fun. And now you've gotten a chance to listen to it. So,
yeah, I mean, listening to Bobby, the recording of that, I kept thinking this stuff is so important, and we want this for our people. And we, in the home office, in our training and in our application process, and starting with the first call with our people, this topic is on our minds.
Yeah.
It's front and center. And so even in the first call I have with people, I'm paying attention to potential signs that could indicate an area of concern or an area where they're doing really well in their mental and their, holistic health.
Yeah.
Or something that they have worked through and have kind of come out on the other side of, which often comes out pretty early in these conversations we're having because we get deep very quickly.
Yeah, that's right. And I'm actually kind of suspicious when I see an application and it appears pristine. So what I tell people is that we want to get to know who they really are.
Yeah.
We care about who you really are. I say that to people at Access Training. And that lets them know from the start that we're not looking for pretense, we're not looking for appearances. We want to know their hearts and help them move forward in a healthy way.
Yeah.
And you said something earlier about how that contrast, like we care about you, and it goes like one step further to we care about who you really are.
Yeah. Yeah, I think for me to say, hey, Michael, I care about you, has some merit, some meaning.
Absolutely.
But if I say, Michael, I care about who you really are, it lands differently, I think. And we want our people to know that the things that Bobby talked about are really important to us.
Yeah.
You had said that if you see an application that has no mention of any mental health challenges or issues that they've worked through, sometimes it raises some suspicions because most people have things that they've gone through at one point or another. I think some of our assessments that happen along the way in our process too are helpful to go one step deeper than what people might even reveal on an application. We do this personality assessment called the PDP Pro Scan, and one feature of that assessment that I think is missing from some other personality tests is this stress areas assessment, where we take a look at their current environment and this kind of season of life that they're in, and what stressors are present in their current environment and are maybe causing them to make adjustments of how they would naturally behave in a situation to accommodate the stress that's in their life. And that can be brought on by a job, a relationship, a combination of things, and expectations they may feel. And talking about the interpretation of this assessment really opens a lot more doors, and people feel a freedom, I think, in those conversations to open up about things that they may not reveal in their application. And so we often open the doors to these mental health conversations through something like a personality assessment that then gives us some information to start the conversation, and then we open it up to them to take it one step further. So I really like that. We also have a psychological evaluation that some of our applicants go through. And I mean, that is a really in-depth look at their history, their childhood, their upbringing, their behavior tendencies, their marriage, if they're married.
That seems so intimidating and like invasive in a way.
It can be, but it's thorough.
Yeah.
And the point being, as Mark said, that we really want a holistic picture of health on the people that will be joining our organization, their mental health, their emotional health, their spiritual health, their physical health, and we want to send healthy people to the field, which is something Bobby really emphasized
100%,
in this conversation.
Yeah.
And so making sure that we're doing our due diligence to understand as much as we can about people in the state that they're in right now, so that we can prepare them well and send people who are ready to serve and healthy to contribute to the work that we're doing, and not jeopardize some of the work that's happening in the field or the relationships that we have in a particular community. And everyone has their own set of mental health challenges and setbacks even along their own journey, including like the leadership, in our organization and leaders on the fields and us as serving coaches and our families and our spouses. And so we're not exempt to that either. And I think like leading with vulnerability and transparency, openness, and having a back and forth dialogue, I think that provides a safe space too for an applicant to feel like they can enter into this with their own transparency and vulnerability. And I think we should just be open and forthright in saying like everybody deals with this stuff.
Yeah.
And that was the thing I noticed when I first came to One Collective as well, is just like the ability to be vulnerable and be accepted, and there to be grace in that, and be like, thank you for sharing. And also we want to enable you and support you to serve other people around the world, and just the amount of acceptance I found across multiple leaders in different communities and stuff like that was just really amazing. And I haven't experienced that with any other org really. And so I do really believe that's super unique to us. And I love that about One Collective.
I often tell people who are looking for an organization, whether it's One Collective, and some people come to us, they're comparing 2 or 3 organizations. I tell people, pay attention to the vibe you get when you're interacting with the staff, like a serving coach, other leaders that they're in contact with. Pay attention to the vibe. Because most organizations will be similar in their doctrinal statements. You're going to find a role and a location to serve in, most likely. But pay attention to the vibe, because that will set organizations apart from one another.
It's the culture of the organization.
Exactly. Yeah. And when a culture is grace-filled, it allows for greater potential for these mental, psychological, emotional, spiritual issues to be dealt with in a way where people will want to open up.
Yeah. I know One Collective does a lot of training for people that we're deploying. But what does that training look like in the space of mental health and spiritual health and physical health? Do we cover that at all? What does that look like?
Yes. The first thing I would say is, Carly alluded to this, is that in the people who are leading training, they come with an attitude and a demeanor of hopefully modeling this kind of vulnerability and openness. We're not coming with, we have the answers, you have your problems, let's get this figured out.
Yeah.
We come modeling some of our own areas of deficiency and weakness, and so that sets the whole tone for the 2 weeks of access training, even in the 1 week of orientation as well. And so some of the topics that we cover during our training are compassion fatigue. We tell people, you are going to have a very challenging time bringing your compassion to people who have experienced really hard things. That's going to be hard for you.
Yeah.
So we talk openly about that.
That's awesome.
That affects the mental health and spiritual and emotional health. We talk about grief. We talk some about trauma. We prepare people to leave well. What does that mean? How do you say goodbye to someone well who is sad that you're leaving, or someone who is not pleased that you're leaving? How do you do all that?
Yeah.
Those are some of the kinds of things we talk about in training.
Thank you guys. This series has been super fun to do together, and a new experience for all of us. And so hopefully you guys have gotten some value out of this. And if you guys are interested in hearing more from these two wonderfully wise people and me just asking questions, we'd love to hear about that. So submit questions and maybe we'd do another season of Torn Between. But for now, this one's closing, and if you have anybody that might benefit from any of these episodes, we'd love that you would share that. And so follow us on all our socials, and if you're interested in serving, Mark and Carly would love to chat with you. And so I'm assuming if you're this far into this podcast series, then you're somebody that wants to go and find a place to serve. And we would love to get you connected to the right place, the right team, the right community. And hope this has been helpful.
Yeah.
Thanks
Glad to
guys
be with
for going on this journey.
Glad to be with you.